right, hey y'all, Paul C. Torina here. I want to talk to you today about grounding, hiking, camping, and outdoors 101. This is meant to be a simplistic overview presentation of where we are and where we need to be. And when you stick with me to the end of the video, we're going to have our summary of guidelines of things that you need to do to implement this to feel amazing going forward. And I can tell you right now, like, I freaking love being outside. I cannot get enough of it, especially now that I know how healthful and important it is for health. Because like all of you, for most of my life, I've been told and I believed that sun exposure was bad for some reason, and that getting dirty was not a good thing. And now that I understand the importance and the synergy with all the different things that we talk about on a regular basis, like, I know that it's crucial for health, and I try to do it as much as I can. And there's so many benefits that come with it, aside from the things that we're going to talk about that are known benefits. There's a synergy of things that happen, and that's really what we want for people, is to understand this is so crucial for health. You know, it's one of our foundations, but it's just one. And I think when most people start to work on their personal holistic health journey, the easiest place to start is with food, nutrition, we would call it real food, and then also some kind of a fitness component, and then you tie those two things together, you're going to get a lot of bang for buck as far as results go. And if you just went the rest of your life and you focused on real food and functional fitness, and that was your main priorities, and you didn't give any credence to these other things that we talk about, you might survive. You might do better than if you didn't have that information before, but you're not going to thrive, and that's what this is all about. This is about feeling as amazing as you possibly can on a day-to-day basis, and seeing how far you can push that, how amazing you can feel, how optimal you can make your health. And that comes naturally, easily, and effortlessly over time as you start to incorporate these different foundations. So one of the things that I want to emphasize is, as you're going through your personal holistic health journey, you know, a lot of us want to be perfect with all this information all the time. What I think is beneficial is to learn the information, just like we're going to go through this information today, because once you unlearn it, you can't unlearn it. Or once you learn it, you cannot unlearn it. And so therefore it's in the back of your mind, it's in your unconscious, and you can't help but make better decisions to move in that direction. So remember, as our foundations, real food is a huge piece of it. What is real food? How do we implement real food? And how do we take ourselves through different experiments to facilitate us understanding what real food is best for us and at what times? And then also circadian rhythms, very important. Important for setting your hormonal patterns and your sleep patterns and your energy levels throughout the day. And remember, we always want to make sure that we get sun exposure and that we turn off all our stimulus at night to the best of our abilities. The sooner you can do that, the better, actually, after the sun goes down. Functional fitness, we'd say get fitness in any way that you can, but we recommend functional fitness that's constantly varied and that gives you constant low-level activity, and also gives you brief periods of intense activity, metabolic conditioning, and strength training sessions. And of course, we love CrossFit here at the CrossFit Combine. If you haven't joined us here for any sessions, you need to come check us out, because it's just amazing. We have a great community here. Most of the members here we've worked with in some capacity, and so we're all on the same page as far as that stuff goes. Also, grounding and being outdoors, extremely helpful, extremely important. We're going to talk about that today. And then having natural solutions for your home, for symptoms, for your emotions, and for cleaning, so that you're not inundating yourself with all these different toxins from all over the place. And then remember, we're really huge into meditation and mindfulness, and I feel like, you know, we're masters at meditation and mindfulness because we have a lot of experience with it, but we also don't claim to be perfect with it. Like, we're just like everybody else, but we're committed to using it every single day. And with that experience comes a lot of different wisdom. And then also, simplicity and elegance and making this work in a modern lifestyle is extremely important. I feel like too much of us have too many things, and we're too inundated with technology, and we're stressed out because of social media and everything else, and we want to free up time so that we can live life and enjoy life. And of course, spending time with others is going to be really important. So tie all this stuff together, and it's extremely helpful. And I mean, again, we're trying to move in a direction of feeling as amazing as we possibly can. Nutrition and fitness are going to be big components of that, but then you also want to make sure that you're giving some kind of credence to these other foundations. All right, so where we are now, as far as talking about what we're talking about here with our foundation of grounding, hiking, camping, outdoors 101. It's a tongue twister. So we're in a modern lifestyle, and we cannot avoid the modern lifestyle. But when you really take a big picture look at it, it's no surprise we're as dysfunctional as we are, because we've sacrificed convenience and technology for our health. Now, the optimal solution or situation would be to understand what we need as far as our inputs, and then use convenience and technology to our advantage. And that's one of our goals as we go through this whole process and we continue to learn about this information. So first of all, when we talk about light, we're supposed to get a certain amount of light from the right sources at the right time of day, and we're not supposed to get light from the wrong kind of sources at the wrong time of day. And there's a lot that we could talk about as far as that goes, but most of us are confined to office lighting from the majority of the day unless we take purposeful breaks and get outside on a regular basis. And by the way, that office lighting it's bright, but it's not bright enough to mimic the light that we get from the sun, and it doesn't have the full spectrum of light and all that other stuff. So we're in a closed environment with a minimal light stimulus that doesn't give us this light stimulus, and that causes problems. And then at night, most of us are inundated. I'm starting to use inundated a lot. I think I just discovered this word in this presentation, but we are just bombarded with light, and too much light from too many different sources and too many different directions. And so when the sun goes down, if we're mimicking the evolutionary template and what our ancestors were probably used to, we would probably be titrating down on our stimulus, but most of us are exposed to a lot of bright light from overhead lights and computer screens and cell phones and televisions and things like that. And then, a lot of us have poor sleep habits. So we have electronic things running as we're sleeping. We go to sleep with the TV on or the radio on. We have all kinds of different things that disrupt our sleep. And a lot of us are laying in bed looking through our cell phone, going through social media, or maybe you're doing some business stuff or whatever it is. But the reality is that's causing a lot of problems, and it's disrupting our circadian rhythms. And then EMFs and radiation, this is such a huge hot topic in the holistic health realm now. There's been so much research done on this stuff. We're exposed to so many EMFs and radiations, it's ridiculous. Compared to 10 years ago, I think the number is a word that I've never heard before. It's like beyond trillions. It's some quadrupa, HIPAA, something. I don't know what it was, but the amount of exposure that our bodies are, having on a daily basis is just unheard of. And the prior thinking, back when we first started developing cell phone technology and data technology, the prior thinking was that ionizing radiation was the true problem. And that's things that we think of when it comes to radiation, like X-rays and nuclear radiation. But there's also what's known as non-ionizing radiation, and this is where all the research is being done recently, and about how toxic that is for the body. And the problem is we can't see it. And this non-ionizing radiation comes in a lot of different frequencies, a lot of different spectrums, a lot of different intensities. And especially here in America, where we're all about like the social media and the data downloads and the sharing and all that stuff, like think about where all that stuff is going. I mean, when you're on a wireless network in your phone and your computer, that stuff is going somewhere through something somewhere. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not doing something. And it's causing major problems with a lot of us, so we don't realize it. And then social media. This is one of my little, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm not going to say pet peeves because I use it all the time, but it's like one of these little areas that I want to dig into and help people with, because personally, like, I've uncovered so much and I've cleaned up my life because of the way that I use social media. But for most of us, so there's this really interesting survey that I came across where they surveyed all these different industrialized nations, and 2/3 to 3/4 of the people in these nations can't imagine life without the internet. And I mean, I think life would be very different. I could imagine life without it. I think it'd be great. There'd be a huge adjustment. But I think there was a time that I remember saying to myself, maybe it was when I was back in insurance, like I can't imagine doing this without the internet. And I think that's where a lot of people are. And this is some recent information. So minutes per day spent on social media, this is per capita. So that means if I'm someone that doesn't spend as much time, someone else is spending way more time. But on average, we're above 135 minutes per day. So that's over 2 hours. It's about 2.5 hours that we're spending a day on social media. And, you and I, we don't have that much waking time to do all the stuff that we need to do. That's a lot of time to be spending on social media. And if we look at that cumulative over a lifetime compared to other life activities, this is really sad. The biggest life activity that most Americans spend their time on is watching TV. 7 years and 8 months of a lifetime they're watching TV. I don't even have my TV plugged in my place. And I may plug it in if I really want to watch something, or if I have a guest over or something like that. But and then second to that is social media, which is 5 years and 4 months estimated over a lifetime. You can see all the different other life activities. But the big takeaway here is that we're spending a lot of time on social media. And the big question is, are you addicted to social media? And most of us probably are, and we just don't realize it, because I can tell that I am. I still am, even though I work with it on a daily basis. Do you constantly look to see if your post was liked or commented on after you post it? Like, that takes a lot of activity, like constantly checking, constantly looking. Randomly have an urge to look at your phone for some reason, like especially when you're sitting in space. I feel like a lot of people have a very difficult time sitting in space. They feel very uncomfortable when nothing's happening, and so there's an urge to check your phone. So checking your phone at stoplights, checking your phone while you're not doing anything, checking your phone maybe while you're standing in line, and just being uncomfortable in space in general. And then, are you one of these people that always has your push notifications going off? I have, and no offense to anyone that's had this happen or that does this, because there's no judgment here, it's just an awareness thing. But I have clients that come in and their phone's going off nonstop, even though they try not to look at it, like it's distracting. And not distracting as far as what I'm trying to do with my client, because I'm used to this and I'm very aware of it, but I can tell it's just distracting for life in general. I mean, just think about how often that thing goes off, for how many different reasons and how many different apps you have installed. And that takes away from your ability to enjoy and appreciate and be a part of life. And then most people have their message notifications going off, if nothing else. That causes just a lot of distractions, a lot of addiction, a lot of problems. All right, then when we talk about being in touch with the earth, which is another huge component of this, we are completely disconnected from nature. And even when we're in nature, we have a hard time disconnecting. So we live in insulated homes that are off the ground, that are not in touch with the earth. We have rubber insulated shoes and soles and flip-flops and sandals and things like that. So even when we step outside to go outdoors, we're typically covering our feet or the thing that would be in touch with the earth with something that is insulating. And then we get into our vehicles that have insulated tires, and so we're driving to wherever it is that we're going, and we're still insulated. And then we have insulated shoes, so even if we do take the time to go out and do some hiking or some camping, most of us are going to be in shoes most of the time. And so we're completely disconnected from nature all the time, even when we try to get into nature, and of course we're getting a lot of the benefits associated with it, but in general I'd say that we're just completely disconnected from the way that we're meant to be. And again, there's not to say that you can't use this stuff to your advantage and enjoy technology, which I certainly am finding a way to blend all that stuff together, but I think you get the idea. And then, being in this modern lifestyle, we are exposed to a ton of pollution all day, every day. We can't escape it, or it's very difficult to escape it. And this was really clear when you come driving into Vegas from, we came in from Utah not too long ago, and just coming down into the city, you could just see this big pocket of pollution. And then for me, I'm envisioning EMFs and radiation and electric wires and all these buildings, and like it's just this buzz of stuff that our bodies just are not used to. It's kind of sad, and you can't avoid it. You're a part of it. So this is where we're meant to be. This is what we want you to rediscover, how we were meant to live. Okay, so being outdoors a lot, like our ancestors spent a lot of time outside. Modern hunter-gatherer populations that are not modernized, and still a lot of populations that wouldn't be considered to be ultra-industrialized or modernized, spend a lot of time outside. It's very helpful for you. We're meant to be in contact with the earth on a regular basis, because being in contact with the earth has measurable physiological benefits. And if you don't understand what those things are, we are going to go into more detail, and we'll also have some links for some resources that you can dig into. Being outdoors, being in the openness, being away from all this technology and all this stress and all the pollution, and being with other people just has all its own benefits. And then of course, when you get outside and you go on hikes and you go on camping trips, you have a chance to actually experience functional fitness at its best, because you're moving through varied terrain. And we've been on some great hikes where we had to do some bouldering and some climbing and some crawling and some carrying. We had to hand stuff off to people and hand Conan off to people, and it's just been really fun and exciting to be able to use your fitness for real, and then being outdoors, you always have a chance to ground. So we mentioned before, if you're insulated all the time, even when you're camping, you can choose to take a moment and take your shoes off and sit on a rock and be in touch with the earth, or spend some time around your campgrounds just being barefoot for a little bit, And I know weather's going to dictate things, but you understand what I'm saying here. We have a lot of chances when we're outside to connect to the earth. And then when we go camping especially, a little bit when we go hiking, but when we go camping especially, we get a chance to completely disconnect and unplug. And not disconnecting the way that we were talking about before. I realized that when I was putting this presentation together. We are completely disconnected from the way that we're meant to be, but then we want to disconnect from all this technology and pollution and everything else that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And when you go hiking, and especially when you go camping, you have a chance to be free from all that stuff. I think it's one of the main reasons that it can be so beneficial. When you're out doing these things with other people, you have a chance to experience real experiences that you will always remember. Pictures will not do it justice, all right? We've had so many great times being on hikes and being out camping, so many great memories, so many great experiences. You get real connections, you build real friendships, you get to experience people as they really are versus these stiff environments that we sometimes find ourselves in. You completely disconnect from EMFs and radiation for the most part. Ideally, like you're putting your cell phone in airplane mode when you're out doing these things. And if you're with us, then of course we always mention it. And then social media, like you have a chance to completely disconnect from social media. And then remember, being outdoors in that pristine environment is going to give you an opportunity to invite the good guys into your system, these good microorganisms and beneficial bacteria. The microbiome and ecosystem of a pristine environment is amazing to be in because you immerse yourself in all that stuff. And if you've been eating real food and sleeping and doing all the things that we promote for health, you're creating this enticing environment for these good guys to come into. So getting out into the pristine environments is extremely helpful for your health and your gut and your microbiome. And being in fresh air, you're getting all the airborne goodness and essential oils and scents and things that come with being out in nature. And then remember, natural light, being outdoors is going to help you set your circadian rhythms. It's going to give you that brightness that you need to help you set your hormonal patterns and your sleep patterns properly. And then even having some natural light at night through campfires is going to be beneficial because that's a different spectrum of light, and it's calming and soothing, and it's the appropriate kind of light, you know. So camping especially, you get to completely sync your circadian rhythms because you have brightness during the day, and you almost have no choice at night except to experience the dimness of a campfire. And hopefully you're not just inundating yourself with all these different LED lights and things like that. But and then being outdoors, there's been a ton of research that proves being out in the open facilitates openness, creativity, and inspiration. And it's one of the main reasons I like to recommend for people to do their meditation and their priming and practice outdoors, because even with your eyes closed, it just feels more open. It feels more spacious, and it does definitely facilitate more openness and creativity and gives you more inspiration. And then being out on these hikes and going out camping, you have a chance to experience what we call awe. And you can look awe up, and I forget what the heck the definition is, but it's like something that takes your breath away. You know, when you look at a view or a sight and you're just like, and part of that is this exhilaration that comes from, you know, being up so high or being so far out or seeing these wonders of nature, you know, but awe is just, it's a feeling, and once you look for it and you understand what it is, it's a feeling that you just want to cherish for the rest of your life and experience as much as you can. And so you're only going to experience those things when you get out hiking and camping, or maybe if you go on some, you know, like guided tour or something like that. So then the big question, this is what I want to give you all as a takeaway today. So, and again, this is meant to be a big overview. I want to dig into a little bit more depth with each of these foundations or each of these components in the near future here. But this is what we want to talk about as far as how often do we need to be implementing this stuff into our daily life to get the full benefit from it. So we'd recommend grounding, being barefoot daily for at least 3 minutes per day. And the easiest way to do that is to do your meditation, or what we call priming and practice, sitting outside in the open, just like I'm doing right now, with your shoes off, being in touch with the earth. And then you're knocking a bunch of stuff out at once. You know, right now I'm getting brightness from the sun. I'm not in direct sun exposure, so we would recommend having some direct sun exposure, but I'm grounded, I get my priming and practice done, I get some brightness, and so I help set my circadian rhythms. When you ground daily, just keep this in mind. You want to ground on sand or beach, grass, dirt, earth, or soil, or concrete or brick, just like this right here, that is not sealed, that is in touch with the earth. And then ceramic tile also does the job. It's conductive for the purposes of grounding. Right? And so if you don't have access to dirt or earth or grass or a park on a daily basis, then you can just find a sidewalk that theoretically is going to be in touch with the earth. All right. Then we'd recommend getting sun exposure weekly, and we'd want at least 3 days a week where you're getting 15 minutes or more of direct sun exposure, and that's for fair-skinned people. Again, that may seem like a lot, so you want to start slowly and work your way up to this, but we're doing a lot of great things when we get direct sun exposure, and you build a tolerance for it for sure over time. If you have darker skin like I do, you're looking for 20 or 30 minutes or more several times a week. And if you have concerns around skin cancer and all the different things that we're told are bad for us as far as sun exposure goes, just stay tuned because we're going to have a lot of great information associated with that. We'd also recommend going hiking on a weekly basis. And you want to make sure that that's in a pristine environment. So this does not count if you're walking around the block. That's not a hike. We want to go out somewhere. If you're here in Vegas, like Red Rock or Mount Charleston would be great. Somewhere else even further away might be even better, but it needs to be a pristine environment to take advantage of all the different benefits that we'll get from being outdoors. And then we recommend camping on a monthly basis, at the minimum once a quarter, which would be once every 3 months. And same thing, you want to make sure that you find a pristine environment, so camping in your backyard or down at the park is not going to be as beneficial as going out somewhere in a pristine environment. And we want to, ideally, when you do that camping trip, you want to do it for 3 days or more, so that and the reason for that is because you're completely disconnecting from pollution, radiations, EMFs, social media, and that's the time frame we start to see a lot of health benefits in the literature. And then, so in summary, if I had to tie all that stuff together, I hope I've given you a really good overview of where we are as far as a problem and where we need to be. I would say start by acknowledging our modern lifestyle and make a conscious effort to notice how our modern lifestyle is impacting us. I think it's fascinating to look at us as an animal species just immersed in this modern lifestyle, and we're still on a planet that is billions of years old, and most animals and organisms out in nature are still doing their thing the way that they've always been doing it. And here we are, we're too smart for our own good, so make a conscious effort to notice this modern lifestyle and have a fascination for it. Don't have we're not saying get negative and down on everything, because we want to integrate all this stuff. We want to take advantage of it, but just look at it with curiosity and fascination and notice it. Remember, ground daily for 3 minutes or more. Ideally, you're doing that during your meditation, your morning meditation priming and practice session. Get sun on a weekly basis, 3 days a week, 15 minutes or more if you're fair skinned, a little bit more if you're darker skinned like me. And 3 days a week means Saturday, Sunday, spend some time outside of the park, maybe one day in the afternoon during the week, going down to the park. I like to go to the dog park down here all the time. I'm stepping outside like 5-6 times a day, throwing the frisbee with this guy. I'll take my shirt off, walk around, sit in the sun, So find a way to make that happen. And then we want to hike every 2 weeks at a minimum, ideally once a week. And again, this is out in a pristine environment. And I would recommend, come rain, sun, sleet or snow, hot or cold, always go. It's good for your system. And then camp once every 3 months at a minimum, but ideally once a month. You're getting out there and spending 3 days or more in a pristine environment, and ideally you're doing that with other people, okay? So I know this information is helpful, useful, but I want to make it as useful as I possibly can, so please make sure to give me some feedback, give me some comments, and look for some more powerful information coming up here in the near future about what else we can do to make ourselves feel as amazing as possible as far as all these different concepts go. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in.